Hi everyone, my name's Emily and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be the third video of my Game of Thrones series. This is a spoiler series for it. This is my third time reading the book, so I'm going through chapter by chapter and analyzing things, picking out what's being foreshadowed, picking out information that I didn't realize the first two times, and sharing them with you. So if you have read Game of Thrones and you'd like to discuss it, please comment down below. So, I just wanted to apologize, I don't really know why, but my Game of Thrones copies, the whole Song of Fire and Ice series by George R.R. Martin, I own in the mass market paperbacks, and they are kind of ruined. Like, you can look at the spine, there's a lot of creases. The reason for this is because I love this book so much, and I've read it 3 times now. It's just, mass market paperbacks don't really hold up well for me, but it's affordable for me. So, I'm sorry that they look like this. I do eventually want to get the new, Barnes & Noble has an illustrated collection that they come out with on the anniversaries of the books, and I want to get the whole series, but they only have Game of Thrones out right now, and The Clash of Kings comes out this year. So, without further ado, I am going to get into chapters 21 to 30 today and tell you what happened in them. So, in chapter 21, it's Tyrion's perspective, and it's his third time in the story. You learn that Bowen Marsh is his Lord Steward, that Maester Aemon is the maester at Castle Black. Mormont, who is the Lord Commander at Castle Black, says that the Night's Watch will escort Tyrion to Winterfell. So right now Tyrion has been at Castle Black. He's been staying with them. He traveled with Jon and his party up there. So now Mormont is saying, we'll escort you as far as Winterfell, just to make sure you're back safely. So, Mormont, in a kind of an exchange for this, not really, he's just reaching out, but he says, when Tyrion gets back to King's Landing, can you let the King and Queen know that the Night's Watch needs men, that they're low in numbers, and if winter is coming, they're not going to be able to defend the wall. So, Mormont also discusses his fears of who's going to take over for him when he dies, who's going to be the next Lord Commander. He doesn't really have anyone in his ranks that he thinks will be able to replace him. You learn that the summer so far has lasted 9 years, and it's been considered a long summer, which means it's going to be a long winter. There are 3 Night's Watch things still, castles still in effect. They have Castle Black, which is the main one. You have Eastwatch by the Sea, and then you have the Shadow Tower. So Eastwatch has discovered sightings of the White Walkers. They haven't gotten to Castle Black yet, but they're starting to seep in. And these are people in the realms think White Walkers don't exist, they're a fairy tale, it's what people say to scare children. But also the wildlings who live north of the wall are starting to cross the wall. They're starting to sneak in greater and greater numbers, so they're running from something. After learning all of this, Tyrion goes to the top of the wall, where Jon is, and Tyrion tells Jon that he's going to do whatever he can to help Bran. He doesn't really know what that's going to be yet, but he's trying. And then Jon says that Benjen Stark, who is his uncle, he has been missing on his ranging, and Jon says, if he doesn't come back, Jon is going to lead a ranging, and he's going to find his uncle. And that leaves off with Tyrion, and that goes into chapter 22, which is Arya. This is the second time you're hearing from her. So, the first thing that happens is Ned tells Arya and Sansa that he's sick of them fighting, that they're sisters, they need to learn to get along. So Arya asked to be excused from the table. Septa Mordane said no, and Arya runs away like normal. Cause does she ever listen to her Septa? No. So Arya goes to her bedchamber, and she's thinking about running away, and then takes Needle out of its hiding place. So she's like actively going through the steps to run away when Ned comes into the room. And Ned tells Arya that she looks like her Aunt Lyanna, and like she has like that wild side to her that Lyanna had that led to an early death, and he doesn't want that for Arya. And then Ned discovers that Arya has Needle, the little sword, and he's kind of like, where'd you get this? Like, how was something made without me knowing? But he decides to let Arya keep it in King's Landing because it's a dangerous place and winter is coming. And then Ned arranges for someone to teach her how to use Needle, which is Syrio Forel, and he is from Braavos, I think. I didn't write it down, but I'm pretty sure he's from Braavos. And he doesn't call himself a sword fighter, he calls himself a water dancer. So he's teaching Arya to move like fluidly, and he makes her do all these crazy things throughout her training. Then we come to chapter 23, which is Daenerys. And this is where Dany is dreaming of a black dragon. And Dany commanded the Khazar to wait where they were. And Viserys gets mad at this because she shouldn't be commanding Viserys. So Viserys digs his fingers into her breast, like really painfully, so she pushes him away. And one of Khal Drogo's blood riders comes out of nowhere and just like wraps the whip around Viserys' throat and like pulls him backward and wants to kill him, and Dany's like, no, don't kill him, he's my brother. So instead, as a punishment, she makes him walk behind the Khalasar, which shames him. But then the next day, and he doesn't get over it. I shouldn't say that, but he doesn't realize how much of an embarrassment it actually is to walk behind the Khalasar. He's just more hurt that Dany commanded him to do something. And then at the very end of the chapter, you learn that Dany is pregnant. Then you come to chapter 24, which is Bran, and you learn that he had a birthday, so he's now 8 years old. And Old Nan's telling Bran about the others, the White Walkers. Maester Luwin and Hodor come into Bran's room, telling him that there are visitors and that they're requesting Bran to come to the audience chamber. So the visitor is actually Tyrion and some of the men from the Night's Watch. And the reason that Tyrion requested him is because he says there's a way for Bran to learn how to ride a horse. And he gives a drawing of similar to Tyrion's saddle that's custom made, and says if you make this saddle, it'll hold him into place. But the horse needs to be a horse without prior training, so that he can be, the horse can be a girl, but so that the horse can be trained to the reins instead of feet kicking, because Bran obviously can't kick his feet, he can't feel them, so they need the horse to respond to his voice and the reins. And then Euron from the Night's Watch tells Robb that Benjen Stark is missing. Then you come to chapter 25, which is Eddard. And Ned asks the Grand Maester Pycelle at King's Landing about Jon's death, and he learns that Jon had asked the Maester for a book, and the next day he was so sick that he could not rise from bed. So Maester Coleman thought it was a chill of the stomach, and the Grand Maester was kind of I don't know. I don't really know if that's what happened. So in his last hours, Jon Arryn kept calling for Robert, and they didn't know if he meant the king or Jon Arryn's son. So the king came to visit Jon Arryn and had him like laughing and talking and in good spirits. And then the last words that Jon Arryn said were, "The seed is strong," which Lysa took as, "My son is strong." But you learn later on in the story that's not really what he meant, because Ned uncovers the truth. Ned suggests that Jon Arryn may have been poisoned, and the Grand Maester says he didn't show any signs of poisoning, at least not the common signs, or the common poisons that the Maester's familiar with. So Ned asked for the book that Jon Arryn was reading, and it was about the lineages of the great the great houses. So it's just a bunch of like names and descriptions and who was whose son and who married who, and it's really boring stuff. So later on in the day, on the steps of the Tower of the Hand, Ned runs into Arya, and she is standing on one leg trying to practice her balance, and she's like hopping from leg to leg as part of her training for her sword fighting. And then Arya asks if Bran can still be a knight, and Ned tells her no, it's not possible. Which Bran always dreamed of being a knight. He wanted to be in the Kingsguard. He wanted to be, that was his passion. He wanted to be a knight. Lord Baelish Littlefinger is requesting Ned's presence, and he says that 4 people for Ned to question about Jon Arryn. So they're all from Jon Arryn's household. So one is a pregnant kitchen girl, one is a stable hand, third is a pot boy, and the 4th is Jon Arryn's actual squire, Sir Hugh of the Vale, who was knighted by Robert Arryn, which is Jon's son, after Jon had died. So Littlefinger tells Ned to choose a man in his service that he trusts to go and question these people, because Ned is being watched. And if Ned were to personally go and question these people, people would make the connection of what Ned is trying to do in King's Landing. So chapter 26 is Jon Snow up at Castle Black. And so he's a new recruit for the Night's Watch, and they've been practicing together as a group, and then all of a sudden a new recruit comes in. So Sir Alliser Thorne calls the new recruit a pig, and a Lord of Ham, and Sir Piggy, and basically is making fun of him like he makes fun of Jon. And then the new recruit yields in a fight, and Sir Alliser tells him to pick up a sword, then tells Halder to keep hitting the new recruit until he finds his feet. So this new recruit is on the ground, and their trainer is being like, well, just hit him until he stands up. So Jon steps in and stops it, and Sir Alliser tells all the recruits they must go through Jon to get to the new recruit. Create an exercise out of the situation. So basically they're saying, if I need you to get through Jon, and then go and attack the new recruit. So the recruits actually couldn't do it, so Sir Alliser Thorne walks away in disgust. He's like, these aren't men, they're cowards, they're not strong enough. So we learn that the new recruit is Samwell Tarly, and the new recruits do different tasks every day to kind of see where their strengths and weaknesses are, so that when they do join and swear their vows, they can decide where to put them. So the common hall at dinner time, Samwell is sitting alone, so Jon sits with him. And there have been several arrangements to find Benjen Stark, but they haven't had any luck yet, haven't had any trace of him. They don't know where he is. Samwell's dad had forced Sam to join the Night's Watch, so his younger brother could take the inheritance of their Lord Father. His Lord Father had called him a coward and told him he had to renounce all of his titles and say he was taking the Black, or his father would hunt him down and kill him. So the rest of the recruits are picking on Samuel, and Jon puts an end to it. All but Rast agreed to help Samuel, and then when they were practicing in the yard. So Jon's like, hey, we have to help out this new recruit, because Sir Alistair is just going to keep coming for him. So after Rast refused, Jon, Gren, and Pip go to Rast's room at night and have Ghost scare him. So Ghost is a dire wolf. He goes to attack him, and it scares Rast, and he winds up agreeing, okay, fine, whatever, I'll play your game. So then you come to chapter 27, which is Eddard. The commander of the city watch is requesting more men, and the men, because the upcoming tournament, for the Hand of the King, which is Ned, is causing a lot of crime and bad things happening in King's Landing. So Ned tells him to hire 50 new men, and Ned will loan 20 of his own household men until the crowds have left the city. So the 4 people that Littlefinger had told Ned to question did not give any information. They weren't really any help, except for the potboy, who said that Lord Aaron visited the Master Armorer for a new suit of plate, and Lord Stannis went with him. So you're learning now that Jon Arryn and Lord Stannis went together places, which is weird. But also that they didn't just go to the armorer, they also went on rides all the time, and they would go and visit a certain brothel. We just don't know which brothel that is. All he knows is that they went to a brothel. So Ned decides to visit the armorer, and he tells Jorah to start looking into the brothels. So the Master Armorer is Topo Mott, and the armorer says Lord Aaron and Lord Stannis came to visit the apprentice. So the apprentice is Gendry. So Ned asks Gendry, why were Stannis and Jon wanting to talk to you? Why? And Gendry said they were interested in who he was and who his mother was. And you learn here that his mom had yellow hair, and Gendry has very dark black hair. And then Ned puts 2 and 2 together and discovers that Gendry is the King Robert's bastard. Then you come to chapter 28, which is Catelyn. So Catelyn and Sir Roderick are traveling north from King's Landing back towards Winterfell on the King's Road. They hear riders, and it's Lord Jason Mallister traveling south for the tourney, but he doesn't recognize them, so they're safe. And then they decide to stay at the inn at the crossroads, which Catelyn visited frequently when she was growing up. So in her room, Catelyn thinks about where the crossroads could lead her, and she's like, if I go west, I can go to Riverrun and go to my father. East is the Eyrie, which is my sister, but she ultimately decides that she needs to go home to the Winterfell because that's the best place for her, and her sons are still there. Catelyn says her and Roderick should pretend to be father and daughter until they pass the neck for safety. The common room was crowded with travelers for mealtime, but Catelyn recognizes some of the sigils. Marilyn the singer starts talking to Catelyn and Sir Roderick, not knowing who they are, when Tyrion Lannister enters the inn, and the singer gets Tyrion's attention, and that's when Tyrion notices that Catelyn is also at the inn. So Catelyn starts calling out all the sigils that she recognizes, and that they have a duty to her father or Winterfell or whoever they're it's basically their duty to help her take Tyrion captive and bring him to Winterfell to await the king's justice. So you get to chapter 29, and this is Sansa's point of view, and it's the first tournament day for the Hand of the King. And Sir Gregor killed a knight from the Vale in one of his jousts. that night happened to be Sir Hugh of the Vale, which was Jon Arryn's squire, well, former squire. Sir Loras, also known as the Knight of Flowers, gives Sansa a red rose after he wins the last joust of the day. And it's kind of weird because he's given all white flowers all day, and then he gives Sansa a red rose. Littlefinger introduces himself to Sansa, and the last 3 matches are delayed until the next morning because it's now nighttime and they can't fight at night. At the feast, Prince Joffrey sits next to Sansa, and all of a sudden the king is yelling at the queen for telling him what to do. So Prince Joffrey makes Sandor Clegane, which is the Hound, escort Sansa back to the castle. The Hound grabs Sansa's face and makes her look at his burn face because she doesn't want to. And he tells her the story of how he got the burn, and it was that his brother held his face to the hot coals when he was about 6 or 7 and burned off his skin. And he tells Sansa if she ever tells anyone what happened to him, he will kill her. He doesn't want people to know the story. And then the last chapter I'm going to talk about today is chapter 30, which is Eddard again. And you learn that Sir Hugh was the knight that died in the tournament the day before, so Ned didn't have a chance to question him about Lord Arryn. King Robert is still trying to fight in the melee, but he is having trouble fitting into his armor. So he sends his squires to find a breastplate stretcher, which doesn't exist. He just wanted the squires to leave him. And Robert says he fears when Joffrey takes the crown with Cersei whispering in his ear. So Loras rode a mare in the joust, which they typically ride stallions. Well, he knew his opponent was going to be riding a stallion. So Sir Gregor is riding the stallion, and Sir Loras beats Sir Gregor because the mare was in heat, which distracted the stallion and made the stallion go crazy. So game might have technically been cheating, but there really is no rules in a joust, really, in this world, or in any world in medieval times, so it's not really cheating. Sir Loras was just smarter. So Gregor kills his horse because he lost, and then he tries to kill Sir Loras, but the Hound stops him, and then Sir Gregor and the Hound, which are brothers, start fighting, and the king stops it. So the Hound technically wins the joust because he I don't know how to explain it without the book in front of me. But basically, the Hound stepped in and stopped Sir Gregor from killing Sir Loras, so the Hound defeated Sir Gregor. So technically, the Hound is the winner. Thoros of Myr won the melee, and in the Tower of the Hand, Lord Varys visits Ned and tells him Cersei planned to kill the king during the melee. She knew that if she told the king that he couldn't participate, it was going to make him want to do it even more. So that's why she was like, no, you can't do that, like, you're the king. So Lord Varys says Lord Arryn died from the Tears of Lies, which is a poison. So Ned was correct. It was a poison. But now he has to figure out, like, why did he die? What happened? What information did he find out that caused him his death? Anyway, that's where chapter 30 leaves off. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!